All right, so you're trying to get a band 9 on the IELTS speaking test.
Ambitious.
Yeah, I like it. But we both know it's not just about perfect grammar, right?
Yeah, no.
It's about like connecting with the examiner
Yeah.
and really showcasing your ability to communicate effectively. It's almost like you're painting a picture with your words.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's really what separates a good answer from a captivating one.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to dive into today.
Awesome. I'm excited.
We've got some real examples, good and not so good, and we're going to uncover the subtle things that make those examiners go, wow.
Okay, let's unpack this with like a classic IELTS question.
Yeah.
What's your hobby?
Okay.
Now, I've heard a lot of answers that sound like, I enjoy reading. It helps me relax.
Right.
Perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But a bit.
Flat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Flat, don't you think?
It's like a plain canvas with a single color on it.
Yeah.
It answers the question, but it doesn't create any depth or intrigue.
Right.
Now imagine this answer instead. I'm a bit of a history buff, and I've found that historical fiction is the perfect way to immerse myself in different eras. For example, I recently finished Ken Follett's The Pillars of the Earth, and it completely transported me to medieval England. I was hooked.
Wow.
Right.
That's a totally different vibe. It's like suddenly you've added texture and detail to the canvas.
Exactly.
But what specifically makes that answer so much stronger?
So a few things. Firstly, goes beyond a generic statement.
Okay.
And reveals a specific passion, historical fiction.
Right.
This immediately tells the examiner that you're engaged and that you've thought about your response.
Okay.
Secondly, mentioning a specific book, The Pillars of the Earth, adds credibility and demonstrates a genuine interest. It's like providing evidence to support your claim.
Yeah.
And lastly, using vivid language like completely transported me, that paints a picture in the examiner's mind and makes the answer much more memorable.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's like you're showing, not just telling. Yeah. That's what makes it so compelling.
Right.
Okay, let's try another one. The classic morning person or night owl question. I bet you've heard a lot of, I prefer mornings because it's quiet type answers.
Countless times.
Yeah.
Again, technically correct, but lacking that spark.
Right.
Now compare that to, I'm a night owl through and through. It's when my creativity really kicks in. Just last week, I was up late working on a design project, and the ideas were flowing so effortlessly, I ended up with what I think is my best work yet.
Okay. That one definitely paints a more vivid picture.
Right.
It's like you're inviting the examiner into your world a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'm sensing a pattern here.
Okay.
It's not just about giving longer answers, is it?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
It's about making your answers count.
Mm-hmm.
Both of those stronger responses used a technique that is incredibly effective.
Okay.
The personal anecdote.
Okay.
Sharing a brief, relevant story adds depth, personality, and makes your answer stand out from the crowd. And importantly, it allows you to naturally showcase a wider range of vocabulary and grammar.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like sprinkling those extra spices to make the dish truly flavorful.
Exactly.
So for those of us who aren't natural storytellers, is there a framework we can use to kind of make sure our answers hit all the right notes?
There is. Remember that REA method we talked about earlier?
Yeah.
It's a simple but powerful tool for structuring your responses and ensuring you cover all the bases.
Got it.
REA stands for answer, reason, example, and add a conclusion.
Okay, this sounds like a game changer. All right, let's dive into this REA method and see how it works in action. So this REA method, it sounds promising.
Yeah.
But I have to admit, using like a formula kind of makes me think of like those robotic memorized answers that examiners just hate.
Yeah.
How do we use it without sounding like robotic?
That's a great question. The key here is to think of REA as a mental checklist, not a rigid script.
Got it.
It's about organizing your thoughts, not memorizing sentences.
Okay.
So let's say the examiner asks you, do you enjoy cooking?
Okay.
A simple yes or no isn't going to cut it right.
Definitely not.
No.
It just feels like a missed opportunity to show off your language skills.
Exactly. So using REA, you might say something like, yes, I do enjoy cooking, although I'm more of an enthusiastic amateur than a master chef. I find it's a great way to unwind after a long day. Just last week, I attempted to make lasagna from scratch. Let's just say it didn't quite look like the picture in the cookbook, but it was a lot of fun to experiment, and my friends were good sports about it.
Okay, I see how the REA comes into play there.
Yeah.
You directly answered the question, gave a reason for liking cooking, shared a funny anecdote as an example, and then even added a little conclusion
about
your friends enjoying the, shall we say, unique lasagna.
Exactly. And notice how that answer feels natural and engaging.
Yeah.
It's not about using fancy vocabulary or complex grammar,
Right.
but rather about telling a little story that showcases your personality and communication skills.
That's awesome. This is making me feel a lot more confident about tackling some of those like trickier questions.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, there are some IELTS myths out there.
Oh, yeah.
That can really throw you off.
For sure.
Like the idea that you have to use super complicated words to impress the examiners.
Oh, that's a classic.
Yeah.
It's tempting to think that bigger words equal a higher score.
Right.
But it's just not true.
Yeah.
In fact, trying to force in vocabulary that you're not comfortable with can really backfire and make you sound unnatural.
So it's more about choosing the right words to convey your meaning clearly and effectively.
Exactly.
Okay.
Think of it this way. You wouldn't wear a tuxedo to a casual picnic, would you?
Right.
Similarly, you don't need to use overly formal language in the IELTS speaking test.
That's a great analogy. So what about showing uncertainty? I know some people are terrified of saying, I don't know, or I'm not sure.
It's understandable, but it's actually perfectly acceptable to acknowledge limitations.
Okay.
As long as you do it strategically.
Okay.
Let's say you're asked about a topic you're not familiar with. Instead of panicking, you could say something like, that's an interesting question, and I'm not an expert in that particular area, but based on what I've read, and then share your thoughts.
That makes so much sense. It shows that you can think critically and engage with the question, even if you don't have all the answers.
Exactly.
It's about being resourceful, not omniscient.
Exactly. And it's far better than stumbling through an answer that's full of hesitation and filler words.
Okay, that's a huge relief. Now, what about those Band 9 phrases that some people just swear by?
Right.
Are they worth memorizing?
Well, there's no magic formula.
Right.
Certain phrases can definitely add polish and sophistication to your answers.
Okay.
But here's the key. Don't just parrot them. Use them authentically and adapt them to fit the context.
Could you give us some examples? I'm curious to see how these phrases work in action.
Of course. Imagine you're asked about a skill you want to learn.
Okay.
Instead of simply stating, I want to learn to play the guitar, you could say, I've been obsessed with the idea of playing guitar ever since I saw a live concert last summer. It's a work in progress, but I'm slowly starting to get the hang of it.
Ah, I see the difference.
Right.
It just adds a layer of personality and enthusiasm that a plain statement just lacks.
And remember, it's not about memorizing a list of phrases, but rather understanding how to use them effectively to enhance your communication.
Okay.
It's like adding flourishes to a painting.
Yeah.
You don't want to overdo it,
Right.
but a few well-placed strokes can make all the difference.
That's a great way to put it. So to sum up, we've got our storytelling techniques with personal anecdotes, the RRA method for structuring our answers, and then those strategic phrases to add a little bit of polish.
Yeah.
This is feeling less like a scary test and more like a game plan for success.
I like the way you think. And just like any game practice is crucial, the more you practice, the more comfortable and confident you'll become.
Speaking of practice, there's one thing I'm always curious about.
Okay.
How do you handle those abstract questions that just seem to come out of nowhere?
Right.
The ones like, describe happiness, or what is the meaning of life?
Those can be tricky. But remember, the examiners aren't expecting a profound philosophical treatise.
Right.
They're looking for your ability to articulate abstract concepts in a clear and relatable way.
Got it.
The key here is to ground your answer in personal experience.
So instead of getting lost in vague generalizations, bring it back to something tangible.
Exactly. For example, if asked about happiness, you could talk about a specific moment or experience that brought you joy.
Okay.
Maybe it was achieving a personal goal, spending time with loved ones, or simply enjoying a beautiful sunset.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about making those abstract concepts come alive for your own unique perspective. This is making those abstract questions seem a lot less daunting. So we've talked about the content.
Yeah.
But what about delivery? Are there any tips for making sure our spoken English really shines?
Absolutely. Think of your voice as an instrument.
Okay.
You want to use it in a way that engages and captivates the listener. That means paying attention to things like intonation, pacing, and pronunciation.
So no monotone robot voices allowed.
Definitely not. Varying your pitch and tone makes your speech more interesting and helps convey emotions.
Okay.
A slight pause before a key point can also add emphasis and give the listener time to absorb what you're saying.
It's like those dramatic pauses in a movie.
Exactly.
They build suspense and keep you on the edge of your seat.
And just like in a movie, pronunciation plays a crucial role.
Okay.
While perfect pronunciation isn't mandatory, clear and understandable speech is essential. Think of it as making sure the subtitles match the dialogue.
Makes sense. But for those of us who haven't mastered every nuance of English pronunciation, what's the most important thing to focus on?
Clarity over perfection.
Okay.
The examiners are listening for overall comprehensibility.
Right.
Not whether you nail every single vowel sound.
So it's about making sure the message gets across, even if there are a few minor pronunciation hiccups along the way.
Precisely. And don't underestimate the power of practice.
Yeah.
The more you listen to native speakers and practice speaking aloud, the more natural and confident your pronunciation will become.
Okay, that's encouraging. Now, I've heard that using a variety of grammatical structures can boost your score.
Yeah.
But isn't it better to stick with simple sentences if you're not completely confident in your grammar?
While it's important to avoid grammatical errors, using a mix of simple and complex sentences demonstrates a higher level of language proficiency. Think of it like this. If you only use primary colors, you can create a decent painting, but incorporating a wider range of shades and hues adds depth and richness.
So don't be afraid to show off those grammatical skills.
Yes.
Even if it means venturing beyond those basic sentence structures.
Exactly. Incorporate relative clauses, conditional sentences,
Okay.
a variety of tenses to showcase your command of the language.
Okay.
Remember, the examiners are looking for evidence that you can handle complex structures accurately and appropriately.
That makes sense. It's about showing them you're capable of more than just basic communication.
Yeah.
Now, what about vocabulary? Is it all about memorizing lists of fancy words?
Not at all. While a strong vocabulary is undoubtedly an asset, it's more about using precise and appropriate language to convey your meaning effectively.
Okay.
Remember, fluency and coherence are equally important.
So it's not about showing off how many words you know.
Right.
But rather choosing the right words to paint that clear and engaging picture.
Exactly. And just like an artist carefully selects their colors, you should choose your words thoughtfully, making sure they fit the tone and context of the conversation.
This whole analogy of painting is really helping me visualize the process.
Good.
It's not just about speaking words. It's about creating a complete and engaging experience for the listener.
That's a great way to think about it. And just like any art form, practice is essential. Record yourself answering practice questions, listen back critically, and identify areas where you can improve.
Yeah.
Don't be afraid to experiment with different grammatical structures and vocabulary, and most importantly, speak English as much as possible.
Okay, so we've covered content delivery and practice, but there's one crucial element we haven't addressed yet, the examiner.
Right.
It's easy to feel intimidated, but remember, they're not there to trip you up.
Absolutely. The examiner is there to assess your English abilities in a fair and supportive environment.
Okay.
Think of them as a guide, not a judge.
So instead of seeing them as the enemy, see them as a partner in this conversation.
Precisely. Make eye contact, smile, and engage with them as you would with any other person.
Right.
Don't be afraid to ask for clarification if you don't understand a question. And remember, it's okay to pause and gather your thoughts before speaking.
This is all making the IELTS speaking test seem much less scary.
Good.
It's all about clear communication, showing your personality, and using the tools and strategies that we've discussed.
Exactly. Remember to breathe, relax, and let your authentic self shine through.
So to wrap up, the key takeaways are: be specific, tell engaging stories, use the area method, ditch those robotic answers, and embrace those Band 9 phrases strategically.
And perhaps most importantly, view the speaking test as an opportunity to showcase your unique voice and perspective.
Think about a time you had to explain something complex to someone.
Yeah.
What techniques did you use to make it clear and engaging? Those same skills can help you on the IELTS.
Absolutely. Remember, you've got this. Practice those skills, believe in yourself, and go ace that speaking test.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into mastering the IELTS speaking test. We'll catch you on the next one.